Okay guys, so I decided to make an equestrian preferences tag. It's sort of like this or that, so you get 2 or 3 options for category, and then you list your favorite um, or favorites. So if you feel like doing this tag, go ahead. I'm not going to be tagging anyone. My only request is that you give me credit either in the video itself or in the description, simply because I find it kind of annoying when I want to do a tag and I have no idea who it was made by, so I can't give them credit. Um, but that's just me, so that's my only request, that if you want to do this tag, just make sure you credit me. So let's get started. English, Western, or both? I personally prefer Western. I can do both, but the horse that I have now can't. So even if I did want to do English, I would have to do Western. But at one point I was okay with doing both. So, horse or pony? I prefer horses. Even when I was little and I could fit on ponies and I didn't smush them, I didn't really like the ponies. I would rather get on my grandparents' horses. So I was never into the ponies. Oversized or short, I mean, it's by height. So like a really tall horse or pony or a really short horse or pony. I prefer shorter horses simply because I can't get on big horses. Jason he's either 16'3" or he's 17 hand. I can't remember exactly. But he is a huge quarter horse and he looks like a thoroughbred. He's just massive. And if I were to go on a trail ride with him and for some reason I had to get off and then get back on, I wouldn't be able to because I just don't have the height. So I'd rather not deal with that. I'd rather just have a horse that's a good height to where I can actually put my foot in the stirrup and pull myself up. So that's why I like shorter horses. Pleasure or show? I personally prefer doing just pleasure riding. I don't really like showing. I never really did. That's why I didn't really do a lot of shows, even when I was showing. It was too much of a hassle for me, and I didn't really care for it. So I didn't see the point in putting myself through that kind of ordeal. But I know some people just love showing, so hey, it's just not my thing. Favorite color or coloring or colors? My favorite colorings are probably solid black horses, um, or like horses that have just a little bit of white, or paint horses. I love paints, and Appaloosas. Appaloosas are pretty too. So favorite breeds, or breed. My favorite breeds are Mustangs, quarter horses, or not quarter horses, Pintos, there we go. Pintos started off as quarter horses, so I got in my brain a little too much. Hi, Jen. What are you doing? I know it's Jen woke up. So I like Mustangs, Pintos, and Friesians. Gelding, Stallion, or Mare. I personally prefer mares. I don't really like geldings simply because they just get into too much and they're like small children. I have to keep my eye on them constantly. At least that's how every gelding I've ever worked with has been. They're just very playful and they always get into everything and they learn how to open gates. And I know mares can do that too, but for the most part geldings do that, and I don't want to deal with that. Also stallions, they're a pain. My Friesian that I used to ride, who wasn't really mine, he was the most annoying horse to work with just because when he saw a mare, he was focused on that mare. And you had to work so hard to get his focus back. And that's just, I don't really like male horses, I prefer my females. Favorite eye color? I really love blue-eyed horses. Though I've never actually owned one, I would love to have one. Green or push button? I kind of prefer my horses to be not really in the middle, but leaning a little bit towards green, just because I can work with them and they provide a bit more of a challenge. I like working with horses that are somewhat green, especially in wild Mustangs. I love starting wild Mustangs. That is so much fun. At least I find it fun. Some people find it dangerous and scary, but I prefer the more green horses just because I can train them and work with them and we can progress together. Web halters or rope halters? Now this one I don't really have a preference on. I know some people are either dead set on rope halters or dead set on web halters. I personally like both, but I have uses for both. Every day walking around, um, like leading my horse from their stall to a tie point, I'm going to put them in a web halter. But if I'm training, I am most definitely going to ride, or I'm most definitely going to work with them in a rope halter just because they're more sturdy and they're just safer for the horse when it comes to training. They also apply a little bit more pressure and you get a little more control out of it. So I like both, but for certain things. Barefoot or shoed, I personally don't really like shoes. I never really have. Um, so I prefer my horses to be barefoot. I never saw the point in putting my horse in shoes. A bit or a hackamore. The light is like bouncing off of my hair in a really weird way, but just the strand. I think it might be because the strand is drier than the rest of it, because my hair is a little wet still. So bit or hackamore. As you guys know from my bridal unboxing, I prefer my hackamores. I love hackamores. I choose not to ride in bits just because I find that for the most part, people can get very heavy handed with bits and they think that a bit is just it's a tool to control a horse, and the bigger the bit the more control you get. And I know not everyone's like this, but a lot of people do think that the bigger bit you put in a horse's mouth, the more control you're going to get, and that's not the point of big shank bits. The point is you apply a little bit of pressure on the bit and the horse picks it up, so you barely have to move your hand and the horse picks up whatever you want them to do. So spurs or no spurs, I also don't really like spurs. um, I can kick a horse hard enough to where I don't need spurs, uh, and I know how to get a horse to move forward without using a spur. I've ridden horses who people swear you have to ride in spurs, and you can't get the horse to go if you don't ride in spurs. And I've ridden without spurs, and I've got enough power from my knees down to get that control and get that movement. Um, so I never, and I can't really ride in spurs. I've tried boy spurs and I've tried girl spurs, and they just fall off my boots. I was in a lesson once, and I was riding along, and all of a sudden my spur just fell off because I was on a horse that somebody decided that it had to ride with spurs, and it fell off, and my riding instructor, um, or the person that was teaching the lesson, just sat there and laughed, and they were like, "How did you get it to fall off? It's supposed to sit on your boot." And I don't know how I got it to fall off, but it was just dangling there. I don't know. And it was on really, really tight. Like it was constricting my boot onto my foot, and it fell off. So I don't know. And I don't mean like it actually fell off onto the ground. I mean it fell off of the heel and was just dangling underneath my foot. So crop or no crop? Again, I personally don't use crops. I don't really see the point. The only time I ever have used a crop on a horse was when I was teaching my paint mare to give to crops because she was going to be ridden by a disabled guy. And I know that sounds really bad, but people that are disabled can now ride horses because they have special belts and special saddles um, for that. So they will ride with a crop on either side and use it like leg pressure. That's the only time I've ever really used a crop with a horse. And it wasn't really a crop, it was just those long, almost looks like a lunge whip. It's like a mini lunge whip. They're weird. Alright, helmet or no helmet? I'm probably gonna make a video on this at some point, but I personally don't like riding in helmets. They're uncomfortable, and I know that's not really an excuse, but I don't find that I need them. Also, if I'm riding out, and especially in the summertime, if I'm riding and I'm not in an area where there's a lot of people, I can overheat because I have a body temperature that's somewhere between 99 and 101, just constantly. We don't know why. It's just my body temperature is always really high, and I'm not sick or anything. I think my body just metabolizes too quickly, um, without my metabolism being good. But it heats me up so much that if I'm riding in a helmet and with my boots on, I'm not really getting a lot of heat release because you release heat from your feet, your head, and your hands, and you don't release a lot from your hands. So I've actually fallen off of my horse and have passed out and have woken up in the hospital because I had overheated. Um, and fortunately, there were people around me, or I probably would have ended up dying. And my doctor did tell me that if I am at some point riding and there's no one around and I overheat and I fall off, I could, and I'm laying there for a while, I could die because I can't, my body doesn't maintain heat very well. So I could basically cook myself. So I kind of can't ride in a helmet unless it's the winter time. So yeah, no helmet for me. Gloves or no gloves, this is another thing where I don't see the point in them. I've never really ridden in gloves. Um, the only time I ever rode in gloves was when I had to go to shows and it was required that you wore gloves, which I have gone to a couple of shows where you have to ride in gloves. But if I don't, I never ride in gloves. I don't even think I have riding gloves anymore. Um, tall boots, paddock boots, and or tall boots or paddock boots with chaps. This is more for English people. If you're Western rider or like you've never ridden English before, that doesn't really apply. But I know that a lot of people that will do this tag will be English riders, so I decided to add it in. Um, when I was riding English, I preferred tall boots simply because they were just easier. Um, I never really liked paddock boots. I'm not really into a short boot. Probably the Western influence there. And final one, color, like you like your stuff matching in color, or you're a rainbow. You like every kind of color. It doesn't matter. Um, I personally like my tack to match as much as possible. I know that I can't get everything to match all the time, so I just have to deal with it. But for the most part, I do like my tack to match, just because I am a bit OCD, and it's weird that I like my colors to match when I'm colorblind. Fun fact. So that was the tag, guys. If you feel like doing it, like I said, go ahead. Feel free. Don't knock yourself out. Don't hurt yourself. But yeah, so we're going to end it there, guys.